But it can be isolating when you have really difficult decisions to make that are going to impact other people. I left the British Forces. I was in the Royal Signals for around 6 years. I was applying for probably every project management job. It's difficult to get that first step in the door. As you can see, every deal is different. Every client is different. The culture of different businesses. That was a really tough time. We had very frank discussions with the team, very honest discussions. We've worked with some really strong names within the insurance industries. We've supported Gallagher, we've supported Willis Towers Watson, Miller Insurance most lately. But we've built up a team of experts that span industries. I trust my team, therefore I trust my team to find the right people.
Hey everyone, on today's show I will be interviewing the Managing Director of Kierstone, Thomas Willbye. Tom, welcome to the show. Tell us about Kierstone and how did you start?
Thank you, Simac. Good to meet you. I set up Kierstone Consulting about 5 years ago now. I left the British Forces. I was in the Royal Signals for just under around 6 years. Came out, resettlement packages through the army, retraded in project management, went straight into consulting, picked up a couple of smaller mergers, and then established Kierstone Consulting to go and support these mergers and acquisitions ourselves. So we've been trading for 5 years and we've been very blessed across a range of industries to support, like I say, primarily post-merger integration projects.
Tell me more about M&As. On which industry do you specialize in? How big is your team?
Sure, thank you. So we have been specializing in the insurance industry for the last 4 years. We've worked with some really strong names within the insurance industries. We've supported Gallagher, we've supported Willis Towers Watson, Miller Insurance most lately. But we've built up a team of experts that span industries. So we've got some really strong consultants within the pharmaceutical industry, within the media industries as well. We've taken on lots of interesting work across the financial services industry. So we're not pigeonholed in one industry per se, though like I say that we've had a lot of insurance work which has been kind to us. But our team is a team of consultants. The operating model for Kierstone is very, very slim. We bring in our team of experts around us because mergers and acquisitions, particularly, is such a diverse working group. We have specialisms in compliance, legal, tax, finance, marketing, the operations and commercial product streams as well. So we bring in those experts within their respective fields who build out the delivery team per acquisition.
How permanent employees and how many consultants do you all have? How do you go about selecting all of them?
Yeah, so only 2 permanent employees at the moment, which basically forms the governance of the company. But for the operational teams or the delivery teams, I should say, we bring them in very early on in the scoping process. We identify very quickly, working with the vendors and with the clients, particular fields of expertise that we expect to need to call upon, whether that's technology, SMEs, particular migrations, or whether they're jurisdictions that are known for more strict compliance regime. We have a very good bench of consultants that we use and repeat time and time again because they're just trusted colleagues and allies, and I will continue to use these guys as long as I can because the proof is in the pudding, and we've delivered really, really great projects for over the last 5 years, and some of those I've worked with longer than that. We also have some really interesting things going on at the moment where we're trying to bring in as much experience as we can from the armed forces. Obviously that's my background, and that's the background of a number of consultants that we work with. So we're trying to help that transition process from the armed forces into consultancy business and into project management and business analysis, these types of roles, working with some regiments that we know very, very well to help that transition into civilian life as well. So those are our 2 frames. We've got new consultants, which may be junior roles to get in, but get exposure to private equity, to get exposure to just project management and private sector businesses, and then the other bench that are repeated, trusted colleagues.
Love it. Kind of band of brothers, right? So you take care of the ones that are coming up. You said you did project management and started off with mergers. Out of everything that you could choose from, why M&A? What was so exciting about it, or what was the reason?
There's 2 things. One, I was just very, very blessed to get an opportunity at that time. And with all the things, we can all
How did you get that opportunity?
The best processes. No worries. I was applying for probably every project management job available. at that time. Obviously, I'd retraded in project management anyway, but it's difficult to get that first step in the door, as you can imagine. And then I interviewed with somebody who was working with Thomson Reuters at the time for a GDPR program manager, and we sort of clicked, and he gave me a job. And that brought me into the private sector. I'd done a couple of small projects in the public sector before that, but that was my first private sector move. And I've stayed in mergers. So from there, the Blackstone acquisition and carve out of the financial and risk division from Thomson Reuters to then the future sale to London Stock Exchange, I managed to transition onto that. And that was my first merger project. And I've loved it ever since because of the diversity of the projects that you get. So obviously every deal is different, every client is different, the culture of different businesses, and even just the work streams. A typical merger is anywhere between sort of 15 and 18 different work streams to be fully supported, right? And so working and having exposure to all of those sides of businesses, I absolutely love.
Great. So it's going back to the previous question, why M&As, but now you've told me that. And what is some of the recent successes you've experienced so far?
So within mergers and acquisitions, we've supported our 42nd deal recently. That was our most recent achievement, and we'll be celebrating that one shortly. That was the supporting the closure and the day one integration exercises for an acquisition within the insurance and reinsurance market. Very successful day one, and now we move on to day two integration. But as I say, 5 years, 42nd integration, and we can't wait to see what the next 42 look like. We've covered lots of parts of Europe, and we've had a couple of deals in Nordics recently as well. And we're starting to pick up some traction in New York and West Coast as well. So we're just trying to diversify as much as we can geographically, as well as spanning some new industries as well for us that are coming up. And hopefully we'll have another deal to announce shortly in the pharmaceutical industry.
Love it. And what are the top 3 reasons that you attribute to a success?
Great question. So you'll hear this from lots of ex-soldiers, I'm sure, but there's some great soft skills that all ex-forces or most ex-forces bring with them into civilian life. And the ability to communicate was something that you probably don't realize you are developed during your time, but it's been a huge foundational skill for me as I've moved into projects and then into more complex programs, and then now in my position speaking regularly to C-suites and boards, is having that presentational skill to be able to stand up in a room and be noticed and to be able to advise and persuade and sell. And so that's a soft skill that has really, really helped me. I have a family of 6, my wife and 4 children, and myself is my daily inspiration to get up and succeed, because it's providing a life for us that's completely important to me beyond anything else. So that's a huge source of inspiration for me, and not willing to give up, right? You have to keep going. Obviously, for anyone with a family, it's not an option to say no or to give up, and so keep driving to that next deal.
Love it. So family, never give up, and communication skills. Those are your top 3. Yeah.
Yes.
And how do you go about celebrating success? I mean, maybe personally, but also with the wider team. How do you celebrate success? Well,
so we've got a celebration coming up in the next couple of weeks. It's just to celebrate the wins whenever they come, because it's a difficult industry right now, and it has been for some years, right? And particularly post-COVID, it has been waking up. But within each project lead or project sponsor, it's a really important process for me to make sure that people celebrate the wins as they come. And that doesn't have to be closing a new acquisition or supporting that process. It can be any project deliverable that, we can just celebrate as a team collectively, and we try and collectively get together as often as we can to make sure that we're calling those achievements out, not just at this, the top echelon, but at every level, so that people feel really included in our company culture.
Great. And you said you're going to celebrate. Are you able to share the reason for that celebration, which is coming up in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, that was a close client of mine with Miller Insurance. They've been an incredible client for me, and so I help support their acquisitions. It's public knowledge now of AHJ Limited, which is a really great opportunity for both those companies to come together for their reinsurance products. I'll be celebrating that with the Miller client.
Congratulations. And for anyone listening on, obviously, a high-level overview of M&A, and what do you mean by day 1 and day 2, which you mentioned? earlier.
Yeah, perfect. So mergers and acquisitions obviously is a process which starts much earlier with the sort of corporate development teams and merger and acquisition specialists, but it comes over to us to support that process around the point of like a non-binding offer being submitted to the clients. Because at that point we start getting documents in from the clients. They start going through what's called the due diligence process, where we start analysing the company that's going to be purchased and matching that off against the integration strategy. So what do we want to achieve at the point that the deal is closed? And once that deal is closed, that's what we call completion or day one. And so there's lots of things that go up to that point, as you can imagine, working with the client, negotiating the deal valuation steps. And then even once the deal's signed, there's often a period of regulatory approval that's needed that takes from signing to completion. But once the deal is completed, I should say, that's our day one. So that's things that you'll often see around communication plans and press releases, and there's lots of work that goes into the technology infrastructure to prepare for day one, because often people want to adopt the same email addresses as the acquired company, or a new co-brand might be established to combine the two companies in some fashion. So there's lots and lots of work that goes on for day one, obviously ensuring operational and regional compliance. And like I say, we work very closely with the compliance and legal teams to make sure contracts are reviewed and updated. And yeah, there's lots to go into it. We have a huge day one checklist, but that's really focused on the must-haves and the initial scope for integration for day one. The real work now is what follows in what we'll call day two, and depending on different companies, will have different timelines that go with those processes. Some can be wrapped up in 90 days, some go on for 2 years. So it depends on the size and complexity of the companies that we're trying to bring together. But yeah, it's an exciting time, and it generates a lot of buzz between both companies, the excitement around that day one. And looping back to the skill set I was talking around communications, that's why it's so crucial in M&A, because it's such a nervous time for some, and often the human element of a deal is sidelined or forgotten. And actually, these are people build companies. Companies are people are the product. And so whatever we can do to support everyone from both sides in understanding what does day one look like, what does day two look like, this is the high level integration strategy, these are our timelines. For what we can say, obviously there's commercial sensitivities, of course, but I will always try and communicate as much as we can so that we can alleviate as much of the stress that comes with M&A, because it's a double-sided coin.
Yes, I can imagine you either have the business owners, the founders, or the shareholders across multiple entities that need to be convinced, and then you have the employees underneath both those companies, right?
Absolutely. And that's the crucial element, right? Because often when these deals happen, the board is aware of what the value of the deal is, what the benefits are to the transaction. The executive layer of the companies are often very well informed around what is likely to happen post completion, but it's that employee layer, it's the team layer. And like I say, obviously with sensitivities taken into account, but there's always things that can be communicated effectively. We work with CHAR very closely. We work with communication managers very closely to make sure that we have the right message. But it goes a long way. And equally, it's the people that are going to deliver the project, right? It's not often the C-suite who are in delivery meetings. And so we have to bring everyone in as early as we can so that we can make sure the message has landed to get the right buy-in for everyone who's going to actually make the deal a success.
Right. And during this whole period, typically how long will the M&A run on an average, given across the 42 deals? How long have you seen that from start to finish?
Well, so the deal process is very difficult to define, because obviously it can take, what we see, particularly publicly, what you see is a snapshot, right? Deals can be negotiated over 24 months, longer. It can take the target longer to prepare for their side of the deal process. Negotiations can take a long time. Due diligence particularly can take a very long time. If the target is a smaller organization, often we find where you've got directors who have multiple hats they're wearing, they're sat across multiple streams. And so filling up these data rooms for these due diligence processes can take a long time if they're not fully resourced for it. So, that's a very flexible process. But at the time of signing, non-binding offer into completion, it can be about a 6-month process, sometimes much quicker. And, the timelines for integration obviously depends who you ask. For me and for many others in my position that I work very closely with, I prefer a more aggressive integration because you've got momentum, right, from the buzz and the hyperbole that's created around around an acquisition. You've got people's attention, and so I like to mobilize as quickly. I like to have mobilized pre-completion so that we're ready to go from day one. We've got all our working groups set up. We understand the scope. It's very well defined and it's got a good layer of governance around it already established. Some companies like to take a softer approach, and in some elements that's completely valid. There are times where the company you buy has a stronger brand in the region they're sat in, right? And so to bulldoze through and rebrand everything doesn't make sense for the market that you're in, the customers that company has. It's very flexible, needs to be well defined up front, and this is where we provide the most value because we've done this so many times now, is understanding the right conversations to have up front, well before completion, well before signing, so that both companies, even if it's just executive layer, understand what the end state is, which is where, in my experience, a lot of these mergers can go wrong by not having the difficult conversation up front as to what the end state would be. And you save yourself a lot of problems by doing that.
Understood. This is quite a stressful time. When it comes to these deals and you're pretty much sitting in the middle of two companies at times, or maybe not, when it comes to acquisitions also. Yes. Mm-hmm. What are the top skill sets, soft skills also, maybe soft skills that you and your team need to ensure smooth transition? Yeah.
So I will say this until I'm blue in the face. Communications cannot be underestimated when it comes to these types of programs, projects. It's communication up to the executive on a regular basis so that they're comfortable on what's happening. It's communication to the work streams and the functions they're going to be delivering. It's communication out of the program to the wider stakeholders, both up, down, side to side, to the other company, and as much as possible, it's that bilateral communication between both companies, because it's easy to sit in the house of the acquirer and make these decisions in isolation, right? But we have to bring the acquired party in as early as possible, as I say, so that they're aware of what the future state looks like as much as we're able to share at that time. External communications, client letters, reaching out to the market to let them know that this is happening for their client, goes a long way in a client retention as well. So communications, beyond that, has become a bit of a dirty word lately in it just sort of slows things down, and it's red tape and it's governance. I've heard that party line a lot over the last couple of years, but let me tell you that the opposite of having no governance becomes a Wild West show, right? And so there is so much value in having a well-defined, well-governed program. And that's where I think our value comes in what we provide, because we've done this before. We know how mergers should be set up. We understand the governance models in terms of successful delivery and in terms of escalation and unblocking and speaking to the right people at the right time without over-engineering it. And I think that's the key. Not everything has to be a formal board presentation that we can do at different levels, and making sure you've got that set up very early on with really clearly defined roles and responsibilities within the program from both sides really helps to keep speed, because as you imagine from an M&A program, things happen at pace. There are reactive things that need to be dealt with very quickly that was maybe missed in due diligence, or it's a new regulatory expectation that we've got to react to. So things have to move fast, and actually with a proper governance model, it will facilitate that. And the last thing is actually expertise. And whilst I won't say, blow my own trumpet, but I will blow the trumpet of my team, because they are experts in their fields, as I hope I am now in merger and acquisition integration. Having that expertise creates calm. Because and where we find again the value we provide is having that external lens to look in, review things, work with companies who have a business process. That's just the way it's always been done, right? Doesn't mean that's the best way of doing it. It's the way it has been done for many years. If it's not broke, don't fix it, that kind of mentality. But having that external lens to look in and review and appraise certain things from both entities and bring them together in a way that works best going forward, rather than bulldoze through that the acquirer is always right. You know, you bought this company for a reason. They may have processes, procedures or technology that's superior to yours, and being open to listen to that is a real key attribute for the targets. But I do find some companies struggle when they try and deliver these programs all internally using BAU resourcing that are already stretched because everyone's busy. Actually bringing in people who are experts in their chosen field brings calm to the people who are then brought in around them to support. So whether that's the board looking for updates or the C-suite looking for updates or the delivery teams, there is real value in having that.
Got it. So great communication skills. You all started about 5 years ago. COVID hit. Currently, still a lot of economic challenges. You know, what are the biggest challenges you're seeing right now in your business?
It's an interesting one. Within the UK, we have some reviews around the types of engagements that companies are willing to entertain, and it's this 5 discussions around making sure contracts are compliant. For myself, that's an issue because my guys are all outside R5. They have strict working practices that makes them such. But there's still, even though this is a long running piece of legislation, there's still not really a proper understanding of how it works in the UK private sector. And so a lot of clients that would benefit from our services, and I've had lots of discussion where they want our services, we can't give them to them because their policy, if I can say that, hopefully, is everything is inside IR35 because no one wants to fall foul of HMRC, and I get that to a point. So that's been a really challenging piece, and actually that happened, or rather the review of those of that legislation happened at the same time as around COVID. So for us, particularly within the consulting model, we was hit from both sides, right? So the industry dried up, obviously, of course, through COVID. From the merger and acquisition side, lots of companies were keeping their powder dry for investment, trying to ride out the COVID storm. And then HMRC doubled down with the changes to R5. And so, it was a three-pronged attack. It felt like we've been very, very lucky, right? And we was able to maintain business through that period. We have some wonderful clients who we've got long-lasting relationships with, who know how we work, trust how we work, and we were able to support each other through that process. And then obviously post-COVID it's picked up, and again we've been very blessed and fortunate to continue to grow during that and post that period of time. And
today, what are the challenges you're facing as of today?
The challenges, the industry is still picking up. Some industries are faster than others. Again, we've been quite lucky in the mid-market and lower mid-market range of acquisitions, and I feel like we've developed our name, a relatively strong name within that field, and we will continue to push within that market for the foreseeable, for sure.
Excellent. So speaking of successes, when you look at it, what is the main reason that clients want to work with Tom and Kierstone and his amazing A-team?
Well, first and foremost, we know who we are, right? We're not trying to be a Deloitte or a PwC, if I can just use those as perfect examples, that are these big machines, right? And that's great. But often I've found, because I have picked up a couple of programs after those guys have been in, where it's very, on a financial perspective, they cost a premium for a reason. They have lots of numbers to chuck at these programs. But often companies don't need, and this is going to be slightly controversial, not all companies need everything, right?
Yes.
And so actually you can deliver most post-merger integrations within that cap that I discussed with a small handful of delivery experts. So like I say, whether that's maybe a compliance lead, a technology lead, program manager to oversee everything, and then a couple of extra expertise as needed per that program. By streamlining that model, there's a simplicity that comes with it. Bring in that level of expertise whilst keeping down the program costs without the big four budget requests that come with those. So we've proved what we do time and time again. We know what we're doing now and for some time. So, there's a level of expertise that comes with that and delivery assurance that comes with that.
Understood. What's the typical client size that you operate? What's the kind of lowest and the highest kind of range in terms of top line?
Yeah, we find consistent in the types of clients that we deal. From a target company, that the companies we work with are acquiring, they range from sort of 50 to 300 headcount, and anything from sort of, I would say, 1 to 250 million EBITDA, because the type of integrations or type of company seems to be fairly similar within that range, right? Where there's lots of value that can be brought in by automating processes, by bringing functions or back office services together and really pushing out the product lines, which is where obviously the revenue is made. And there's lots of really quick wins with those types of companies in consolidating technology products and platforms and those kinds of things. So that's our sweet spot at the moment.
Excellent. But what is your approach in recruiting, identifying high caliber, high performing teams for yourself? For Kierstone?
Yeah, so the screening process is fairly, we've got a very well run process now in terms of onboarding, and that's just the mechanics that sit behind bringing someone in and up to speed. I will always leverage my personal network as much as where those skill sets don't exist at that time. I will look to my network to bring in some of their network, right? Because it's a tried and tested approach, right? I trust my team, therefore I trust my team to find the right people, and we each endorse the next person, right? And once that person's in, then they become part of the network that we'll continue to work with. I think culturally, I've been in projects and programs where there's only one voice that's not aligned, can be a real detriment to delivery. And from a company culture perspective, we have really clearly defined things that are expected and absolutely not expected to represent Kierstone. Even if in the form of an external contractor or consultant, if they come onto a Kierstone program or a Kierstone delivery piece of work, there are expectations that come with that. And, we get it right much more than we get it wrong. But when we get it wrong, it's quickly rectified because, like I say, culturally, I've seen the damage that can come with a bad apple amongst a good crop.
Great. What are the skill sets you look at? I mean, is it on the soft skill? You'll recruit on attitude, and first you'll recruit at something else totally different.
Yeah, for me, there's kind of two elements to this, and it will fully depend on what the job and expectations of that role require or demand. So for more junior roles, we do work with, whether it's admin roles, whether it's project support officer roles, PMO or junior PM roles, whatever the scope is. I'm not overly interested in, well, maybe that's too strong a word, but professional competencies at that point in someone's career are less of a selling point for me. I know my team can teach people to be good PMs, right? Okay. For me, you pick up what you're surrounded by, and I have a great team. So professionally, on those more entry-level requirements, as long as you're a doer and a good person, we're willing to give you a go, right? Because it's around bringing in opportunities and providing opportunities to people trying to start, as I had given to me, 10 years ago. And so, and this is what we're trying to do through our armed forces network, is to provide those opportunities through people transitioning out of not just army but tri-forces as well, and that's why I use that military entry point wherever I can, because I know the vast majority of people who are exiting that line of work are doers, right, and are really delivery focused, right? Even it might be a rubbish job, but I'm going to do that job as well as I can, right, and that will lead to a better job. And it's that mentality that I've seen throughout my army career and since working with that talent. Obviously, beyond that, professional, because we have these professional skill sets that are needed, as we move into more senior roles and more specific functional roles, like I come back to like compliance or legal, Obviously, there will be prerequisites that we will need from, and like I said, we have that available. But fundamentally, just being a good person cannot be underestimated. And I think the industry is turning on that. The businessman from the 90s and noughties that was, very aggressive and cutthroat, and so long may that continue, because and it sounds cliched, we spend so much of our time working and at work, or even working from home virtually. We should try and surround ourselves with nice people, a nice work environment.
Yes. Let's look back past 5 years or 6 years. Tom, what's the hardest decision you had to make as a managing director so far?
I go back to COVID, right? Time we had more employees than we do now, and that was a hard decision to make. It wasn't sustainable,
Right.
to be completely candid, and so we had very frank discussions with the team, very honest discussions, because these are people who have families, these are people who have mortgages and are relying on monthly income, right? And again, aside from this, people that you work with day in, day out, there's a friendship that forms there, right? But that was a difficult conversation. But again, just by being open, honest and transparent, people understood where we was coming from and were really, really supportive in that process. But it can be isolating when you have really difficult decisions to make that are going to impact other people, unless you built that network of people around you, which has been a real support for me, working with other entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And other business founders that have maybe gone through the same thing.
Got it. And what's kind of biggest misconception people have in running a successful business or consultancy practice like yours?
That you'll spend 9 months of every year sat on a beach in Bali, remotely checking in to work as it comes forward, and you do about 3 hours work a day, right? Yeah, that seems to be the sort of TikTok, Instagram view of what being an entrepreneur is. And look, get it right, it can be. I love the job I do because it gives me the flexibility that I can go to my daughter's ballet recital, right? Or I can do a school run in the morning, or maybe a pickup. And I love that I know lots of people who aren't in my position don't get that luxury. That's the blessing that the situation that I've created for myself. But there is this preconception that it's, you stumble upon a great product and then you retire to a beach. It's long hours. It's incredibly stressful. I had a better hairline 5 years ago than I do now. But, you can't have both sides of that. You can't have all the luxury and not put in the hours and not put in the work. And I honestly wouldn't have it any other way. I love heading up this company. I love the work that we do and the people that we work with. I certainly wouldn't entertain any other options now. But for people starting, just go into it eyes open. It's a tough road, and it's a busy road full of competition.
Right.
You've got to learn to differentiate yourself from, you've got to back yourself and really believe in the product or the commodity that you're selling, which is ultimately yourself.
Got it. It's a very good point, right? I think people love to sell dream, but don't actually sell the journey. But they don't talk about the journey up there, right? So it's a good point that you made. You can do that. You want to sit on the beach. Technology, AI, whatever you want to call it in today's buzzwords.
Yes.
How are you all using technology to make your business so efficient that you could actually go to Maldives or Bali and sit out there?
We will use AI in any opportunity that we can. We use AI to support some sort of content, the content creation process. The end product is people driven, and I'm really keen to continue that, because I do still see a lot of AI created content out there that is very clearly AI written, right?
Right.
And the end product that we're selling is people services, right? It's delivery expertise that they will be, they will be speaking to our team. And so it would be inauthentic to be fully AI driven, but we simplify as many of our processes as we can. Things like, especially on the social media side, things like having automated schedulers that we can, and across all our different platforms, it just takes a lot of the administrative burden out of it, a lot of email and calendar coordinators and management tools we use. So there's lots of things that client CRM platforms, stuff like that we will use AI as much as possible, so that we can go and do the things that we need to do, which is the actual delivery of our projects. What I would say, people ask me this all the time around particularly admin type jobs, that AI is coming for my job. Will I have a job in five years time or 3 years time? And I'll always say the same thing, because I've heard these conversations around project managers, particularly in the project management field recently. And I'll tell you what I tell them. So I was going to say a project manager who uses AI. So I'm differentiating between somebody who understands AI and can effectively operate AI to support their role will have a place in the future market, as opposed to a PM who doesn't understand AI. And I think that's a differentiator between how the big importance, of course, AI is already playing, but in terms of job replacement, AI will replace the PM, but AI will replace the PM who doesn't understand AI. And so I urge all of my network, and particularly new joiners and new starters, to really get to grips. And there's so many free courses. I think I was sent a list the other day on LinkedIn, free AI courses. They're everywhere, right?
Yes.
So I urge anyone from my network to really get to grips on how AI can help, not just even just the personal admin, things like Copilot to take and short form the minutes from a meeting, right? Gone are the days where we've got to sit and type minutes for 30, 40 minutes after every call. That's a great element. That's my advice that I'll continue to push. No,
that's great in terms of efficiency and AI. But in terms of maintaining efficiency, let's talk personally from a physical and a mental fitness perspective. How do you maintain your physical fitness and mental fitness when you have stress? How do you do all that?
Mental fitness is a great point in relation to that. Listen, I've been blown away actually by the journey that mental fitness has gone on over the last few years, and it's such a powerful tool because life is stressful, right? There's no avoiding that. Life is and always will at times be stressful. I will always say there is a bit of personal resilience that I think everyone must have. There are mental fitness tools that can help develop that further or help support that process. But I think everyone foundationally needs some inner resilience, because things will always come to sideswipe us, particularly if you're on an entrepreneur journey. I've found planning to be really, really helpful, personal planning. Shock and surprise from someone with a project management background, but I never effectively managed my own time very well until I'd say the last 24 months. So I have a really great planner that I take everywhere with me. I actually have a physical old school one. I appreciate having a physical book that I can, because at the end of the day, I sit and I write down successes and achievements from the day, and then I can start to plan the next 24 hours, the next week, without having a screen in front of my face as I'm about to sleep, right? So I like having a physical sort of handwritten one as well. And that's been a really help for me in managing my own time, managing my own stress and anxiety at times around being overwhelmed with the amount of jobs that a person has to do. So that's been really helpful. I have I've developed green fingers over the last sort of couple of years where I've developed my garden. I've got a really nice sort of relaxation spot in my garden where I've grown some trees and some flowers and some plants as well, which actually has really helped in just taking 20 minutes out of a day to I just wander around my garden and I just take a bit of nature in. So that's helped. Personal fitness, I would love to say I am a consistent, but I know that people I know are going to watch this, so I can't be inauthentic because I know I do have a gym membership. I probably only exercise it once or twice a month. So that's something, a bit of personal progress I do still need to make. I know the value in it, and I certainly feel so much better after a workout or just a run or an hour in the gym. But that's my next step of progress that I need to nail down some consistency.
You should be receiving a lot of awards for that one, because they love members like that who come in and use the facility but
absolutely. Yeah, I need to take advantage of that. That's the next plan.
Excellent. And what would you have been doing if it was not NA today?
Well, that's a great question. Honestly, I don't think I've stopped to ask myself that before. So I would have been in project management in some capacity, that's for sure. I had projects before mergers and acquisitions and before I moved into that space. So I'd probably still be in project management in another field of some kind, because I just love meeting different people and I love talking to different people and hearing their stories and working closely with different people and getting the best out of people. So probably something very similar, but just in a different field.
Okay. What's next for you?
Next for me, Well, personally, I've got a holiday in 30 days and I could not be more excited. I am taking a week out and I'm going to take my family to the north of Italy. So I'm super excited for that. Professionally, we've got some things on the horizon within the merger and acquisition space, the pharmaceutical space, which is super exciting. And that will probably be the largest deal that we've supported to date. So that's super exciting. And also American client we're working very closely with as well in the gaming space. So we're diversifying across some different industries, and we'll just continue to keep pushing the Kierstone name out and delivering for our clients.
Tom, it was great having you here today. Thanks. That's a wrap for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great speaking to you. Cheers.
Cheers.